And we're back with none other than the hair, Jason Anik. I got to do it, Jason. I'm sorry.
You're
And I'll
allowed.
say it. I'll say it again. You know, I've seen you with the long hair. I've seen you with the shorter hair. Your hair grows like a chia pet, man. I tell you.
Oh, we let it flow, and we're letting it flow
Crazy.
a little more than my wife would like us to let it flow right now. If for those, some of you know, I had hair below my shoulders, so we're kind of growing it back.
Yeah.
But you know, we find ourselves on a microphone here and there, which we appreciate, and so we got to clean it up a little bit. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's the only way I've been able to tell you and your brother apart. You know, you're identical twins. And one of the big questions comes up for identical twins, and I think I've asked you this before in person, but for the benefit of our audience, people wonder, like, if you feel the pain, does he feel the pain? You know, if you feel something, does he? Is there any kind of these similarities between identical twins? You know where I'm driving at?
I know where you're going with it, and I wouldn't say necessarily direct pain, you know, like a broken bone feeling it, but certainly a lot of moments, whether it's simultaneously calling one another. We do communicate a lot, but whether it's, you know, there have been times in the past when technology was different where I'd pick up my phone to call him and he'd be on the phone. Somehow it was like a simultaneous call. But no, there's a lot of different things that do the telepathy. There are things that go on maybe where I'm just not having a great day, and then I'll hear from him and something happened in his life and I didn't even know why maybe I wasn't having a great day. But there's a deep connection. But feeling pain, I don't know if it goes that deep.
Well, let me jump in on pain, because I feel pain sometimes when I am around you and John, or see you and John interact with one another, because I don't know if it's brotherly love ball busting or what, but like if it weren't two identical twins getting after each other sometimes the way that you do, I would think like a fist fight is about to break out at times.
Well, it's so funny, and we it always gets physical, and John's always the instigator. But our children, TJ, hate it, right? And they don't get it, right? They're almost like you prove their point. They don't get it. They think it's real. I have two daughters, 11 and 8. Anytime we're grappling or trying to get underhooks, as John's always tried to, they are right there saying, "Daddy, stop." And they don't get it, that it's fun for us. But yeah, we always get physical. We've joked about boxing. And as we get older now, I'm working for John a little bit. If it weren't for the headshots, I think we would absolutely love to compete on one of these clown shows.
Boxing,
That would be-
I feel grappling is okay. You know, it's fun. You can, you know, grapple and not have any sense of like resentment towards one another. But it becomes different when you're actually like punching each other. That's have you ever boxed, John?
No, but I think we'd have a much better
See what you
shot.
just said? Jason, did you hear what he just said? He
If I
slipped.
ever boxed John.
Have you ever boxed
No, I said,
John?
has he ever boxed? No, correct. Has he ever boxed his brother, John? Has he ever boxed
Okay,
John?
yeah, I just want to make sure we're okay on that one. Okay.
No, I love it, Bruce. And you wouldn't believe how many people call me John, but not TJ, not my guy Butch DeSantis. Do you know,
Right.
by the way, sorry, TJ, you knew it was inevitable that I was coming up with Butch DeSantis. Bruce, do you know that I believe it was your dad wanted to name you Butch, right, TJ?
Correct.
And I tell TJ, I've called him Butch DeSantis dozens of times on set. I tell him, Bruce, if his name was Butch DeSantis, I think he'd be a bigger star than he is already. How about that name? Butch DeSantis? That rivals Bruce Buffer. Go ahead.
Well, it starts with a B, but I mean, it's a name that's not used very much. It's a name that stands out. No offense to TJ, fine name in itself, but Butch, yeah, Butch. Speaking of something, you just touched on something for the audience. Let's just explain. You gentlemen work together, right? And
Yeah.
go into that. Tell us where you're working, and I want people to understand where you are, Jason, and what you're doing along with TJ.
Well, TJ's the mayor of UFC Fight Pass. If there could be many better titles than mayor, but that's what comes to mind. So as we travel on this Fight Pass road show, I'm always happy to see my guy TJ. So TJ's always running the show, and sometimes Fight Pass will bring me on. My guy Bilal Muhammad, they'll bring us on, you know, for some of these watch-alongs with Jens Pulver, Forrest Griffin. So a lot of different, B-Mac, Brendan McCatherine. So a lot of different pieces. I've done a lot of different things with Fight Pass, but I love nothing more than being with my guy TJ with the fan experiences. Hopefully at UFC X we'll be doing stuff. Last year they sent me around after firing a couple shots of Howler Head down my throat. They sent me around to go pretend to be John amongst the fans. So I'm down for whatever, but yeah, nothing better than working with my guy TJ. And I always like coming on shows like this or being on the show with TJ where I'm not driving the bus, because oftentimes I am driving the bus in the same way my brother does. So happy to come on here and just talk shit, if I'm allowed to say that.
No, you're allowed to say it. You won't hear me say it too much, but you're allowed to say it.
I know I will.
Every time Buffer says it, it's like an immediate Instagram reel, though, because he gets so fired up, he doesn't realize that he says it, and it's my favorite thing in the world.
I do my best, but you know what? It's when I say it, I always say when I curse, it's got to mean something, right? So,
well,
if I say if I say F you, watch out. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I think that John and Jason alike, being New Englanders, when they let the cuss words fly, it's like the most authentic experience you can get. Jason, I don't think anybody swears better than someone from Boston, Massachusetts.
Oh, I have to agree with that. 100,000%.
Well,
Seriously.
TJ, you know me so well, because I feel oftentimes when I'm censoring myself to not curse, I become less authentic because, and you know, Bilal Muhammad, who doesn't curse and prefers I use the word fudge on our show, when I eliminate the F word, maybe sometimes I slow myself down, but some of the authenticity is lost. And John, I hate to say this, but I'm being honest, cursed very early on in front of his kids. It's like, fuck it. And it took me a little bit longer, but it really hits differently when I can say to my daughter, when they do something the wrong way, like, you know, I broke it down for them to fuck around and find out, right? And if I break that down to the mess around and it just doesn't work. But if you fuck around, you're gonna find out. There's some weight behind that. So yeah, we love F-bombs in our house. My kids know not to say it.
I think we call that FAFO. FAFO. FAFO.
Right.
Everybody's abbreviating
But
everything.
you know, honestly, I feel like swearing is contextual, and like my son is 13, about to be 14. He plays a lot of video games. There's no stopping him from swearing. My rule sort of is it's got to be an appropriate time. You know, if people are around, his grandparents are around, we curtail it. But sometimes you just got to let an F-bomb fly. And
I could take this down a rabbit hole, and I don't intend to curse more, but Jelly Roll just had Eminem on stage with him, I think, in Detroit. And when he's talking about the MF GOAT, it just hits a lot harder when Jelly Roll uses those extra syllables on the microphone. So it is what it is. Yeah. Bilal has often said to me, it's a little tough to be a heel in MMA when you don't curse.
You know,
oh man,
do you curse? You ever curse when you're commentating?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
Has John ever slipped and cursed when he was commentating?
I don't think cursed. Certainly said some things that he'd like to have back.
Well, we know that. Yeah.
Didn't Rogan one time not censor himself on BMF one time on a pay-per-view? I think that's Joe can do whatever he wants. And
yeah, Joe's definitely proven the fact.
But you know, that's a time
little carte blanche.
You know, Jim Miller, this is a good one for you, Buff, because Buffer, correct me if I'm wrong, wouldn't say Jim effing Miller.
Right.
Right? So my brother John took it upon himself at the weigh-in to introduce him as Jim effing Miller. And now you guys got me censoring myself.
Well, at the weigh-in is a little different than on air in front of 1 million people on a Disney-owned station.
I agree. And you being wired the way you are, Bruce, right? Yeah, that's not right. If John was in your shoes and he had that role, he'd relish the opportunity to do it. So everyone's wired differently.
Hey, listen, I'm on Cameo, and I do a lot of cameos, right? And aside from the videos and audio orders coming to my site, brucebuffer.com, but people will sometimes say, they put the bombs in, F this, F that. Other words I definitely would never say, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to say them. Because one of the things is with AI now, even though they can imitate my voice, the last thing I'm going to give is somebody an excuse to play with that one, right? Not gonna do it. Not gonna do it. Hey, John.
Unfortunately,
I did it. Hey, Jason.
You accused me of doing it, and then you go ahead and do it.
I'll be honest with you. I'm kind of like just did it on purpose. I wanted to see the reaction. Jason, okay, you and TJ work together on Fight Pass, but you have the other event that you're doing too, right?
Yeah, we do PGF, which is honestly, in my opinion, no offense to anybody else in the space that has done it. PGF is the only combat sports promotion in the world that I think has actually figured out how to do a team-based format that really makes sense. In MMA, you can't really do team-based stuff because, like, there are promotions out there that will say, okay, it's going to be 5-on-5, and whoever scores a knockout gets 3 points for their team, a submission 2 points for their team, etc. And then you come down to this last match where you have a jiu-jitsu guy that could easily submit someone trying to stand up and trade and do a knockout and get the points for their team. In MMA, your record follows you forever. In grappling, records don't matter as much. But what PGF is doing is they take a pool of athletes. They have 4 coaches. They actually draft them. You become a team, and then you have a whole season where it's team versus team, and then the top 8 athletes individually go on to do the playoffs, and I think that's phenomenal. And the tagline is, it's everything about sports plus
everything you
jiu-jitsu.
love about sports.
Yeah, correct.
Plus jiu-jitsu.
And that's the thing, Jason. I don't know if I've met too many people other than yourself and John who really love sports. And for a while, for whatever reason, there's been a disconnect, I think, between combat sports fans and sports fans. And I think we're seeing a melding of the two more and more now. And PGF has really found a sweet spot in getting, combat sports fans to sort of fall in love with the sports idea. I know it's everything you love about sports plus jiu-jitsu, but for a lot of people, it's everything you love about jiu-jitsu. And finally, they're kind of figuring out sports as well.
Well,
For the
and
people-
go ahead, Buff.
PBF. Spell it
PBF.
out. So
PGF, so it's
Grappling
PGF
Federation.
World. And
Yeah,
season
what does
7,
PDF stands for? PDF stands for?
PGF,
PGF.
Professional
PGF.
Grappling Federation World. Last season, season 7, which was 1 week in November. And when they talk about everything you love about sports plus jiu-jitsu, they have a draft buff with like money for the best athletes demand certain it's like there's fantasy implications, right? They've rebuilt this fantasy site. So part of the reason he brought me in, Buff, was because I know nothing about jiu-jitsu and I'm a sports guy. But there were last season in that week, there were 120 matches in 4 days of the regular season. Then it goes into the playoff format. This season, Buff, as he continues to model it like the NFL, it's like a weekly thing like the NFL, right? So I'm going to be in Vegas 7 straight weeks or 7 weeks over a 10-week span with TJ as well, right? The draft is International Fight Week. And then you have these regular season weeks. These guys compete to get in the playoffs. Last season, I think 20 G's to the winner, 100 grand to the winning team. And it's really, I can't get enough of it. And I'm starting to love jiu-jitsu more too.
It's amazing because I know, since Eddie Bravo's EBI, and which was one of the first ones and growing, it's amazing how the grappling events have really started taking off. And my favorite is combat jiu-jitsu. So that's what I love. Isn't there another event that you're doing too, Jason?
There is dirty boxing. But one more thing, when you bring up combat jiu-jitsu, I'll just say real quickly, what's great about the PGF is there's no stall. You get they throw like a yellow flag like in the NFL, Buff, if there's stalling, right? There's points for kills, breaks. It's definitely designed to interest people and not just leave guys sort of on the mat. But yeah, dirty boxing, another thing I'm doing. I should be talking a lot about that. That's June 14th, live in Miami. DBX1 was back in March, which was unbelievable, but Jairzinho Rosenstrike is headlining DBX2. Forgive me, I don't have the fight card in front of me. Platinum Mike Perry is behind it. John Jones is a part owner. I can't get enough of it. I've enjoyed it. The first one we were a part of was back in March, so DBX2, June 14th, coming quickly, a couple weeks from now, so I'm excited about it.
June 14th, is that in Miami? Or is that?
It is. It is.
And I think my buddy that I recommended, Ben Jackson's going to be the announcer for that event too.
Awesome.
Yeah, very cool.
So and that rule set too, right? It's punching, obviously, boxing, kicking, elbows, right? But ground and pound you can do sort of if you're trying to finish a guy. So let's say you knock a guy to the ground, you can go after him on the ground, but if it becomes grappling, they stand the guys right up. So it's dirty boxing. The name defines it. And I think that they've really found something here that's unique. They talk about this perfect rule set, and it really feels like it is. It's funny to talk about it on the heels of jiu-jitsu, though, TJ. It's like dirty boxing certainly can get eyeballs maybe that jiu-jitsu would have to work harder to get.
Well, it's very
Gotcha.
interesting because
Gotcha.
you look at the origin story of the UFC, and it was basically a paid program to sell Gracie Jiu-Jitsu to the masses, and we get this beautiful sport of MMA out of it. And now the UFC has been king for so long, we're starting to see other promoters and other ideas come to life where it comes back to singular disciplines. Jiu-jitsu is blowing up, and also the idea of the dirty boxing. Like, that's an element of MMA that we don't always get to see enough because there are other factors and obviously different paths for different athletes to try to win a fight. But I like the idea that we start with jiu-jitsu, we end up going, full MMA, but with the success of MMA, we're able to kind of go back and satisfy that desire for niche martial arts and also just elements of MMA that clearly, fans don't always get enough of what they want, and there's other options out there. It's very exciting.
But this is the supposedly reported 16 million or whatever UFC or is Fight Pass, whatever Dana owns, whatever faction putting into the grappling sports. Is that going to benefit?
Yeah. I mean, so the UFC is focusing on the Fight Pass Invitational. Jiu-jitsu for the longest time has been a martial art that was really only presented in a broadcast sense to practitioners, and now we're starting to see the UFC put their weight behind trying to build a vehicle essentially just to have a grappling fight night. And they're not the first to do it, obviously, but I think they're the first to kind of really do it the way that you consume a typical UFC card. And that's exciting because jiu-jitsu, I think, for me, at the end of the day, you give me one discipline to defend myself in, I would pick ground fighting. I think, something like 85% of all conflicts end up on the floor. And you can present it as a big show just like the UFC. And, if you were maybe doing something in the room and not watching the television, but listening, you would think a UFC was on when it's actually just a grappling event. And it's exciting. I think, for the longest time, jiu-jitsu players, they would, spend as much time as a mixed martial artist would perfecting their skills and their craft to try to be the world's elite. But the payday wasn't there. With, Fight Pass, doing the Fight Pass Invitational with PGF, there's an avenue now for these athletes to not rely on DVD sales and instructionals and, doing seminars, that these guys can just be the number one athlete in the world in their discipline and not be forced to go fight and do things that are outside of their comfort zone. And, as a sports fan, I like to see the best in the world, stick to doing what they're doing. And now there's finally an avenue for those athletes to be rewarded as such and just truly be professional grapplers.
Exactly. Well, I agree. In real life situations, at least in my experience, most every fight, unless you're finished in 10 seconds and can take care of it, it's going to go to the ground. So, training for an individual for real life situations, it's always good to have the ground training. We know that wrestling's the best base for MMA. Jiu-jitsu, obviously, is something I would highly recommend for everybody to go through, but you have to learn how to throw a punch, whether it's with a palm or whether it's a punch. And in a street situation, knees and elbows are very, very key, at least from my past experience. So
100%. Like, I feel for the longest time, the heavyweight champion in boxing has been considered to be the best fighter in the world. And that
well, that was the perception. Yeah.
Right, but that title I feel is disingenuous. If you can't fight in all areas, you can't be the best fighter in the world. But that said, we're starting to see, like Gordon Ryan, he's been the face of jiu-jitsu. I don't think you can call him the best fighter in the world because he doesn't fight MMA. But I do feel you can call him the best grappler in the world. And now we're finally starting to see people, have a reward at the end of that sort of effort. If you're the best, if you're the best at anything in the world, you should be compensated as such. And it's exciting to see opportunities for people to, feed their family by being the best in the world at something.
Well, speaking of being the best in the world, you have to have many reps to get there, and it's sometimes hard to say who is the best. It's like people say to me, they say, well, who's the greatest fighter, right? I can't say who the greatest fighter. I mean, obviously I would say John Jones, GOAT. Yeah. But I like to give examples of what I think are GOATs, from George St. Pierre to John, to you name it. John, active, whether or not active right now, I think most of us will say he is the greatest of all time in the sport of MMA. But you know what? Achieving GOAT greatness and achieving everything takes reps. And I just want to say for you two, I've had the pleasure of watching the evolutionary process of your career, TJ, and to where it's going. and the commentating and everything you've been doing and building and building. And I'm very excited to watch you, Jason, and how it's growing with you. I mean, you share the genetic aspects of your brother John, who I think is one of the finest commentator in sports because he's so knowledgeable about all sports, not just MMA and UFC. And my friendship with you and the years we've spent talking to each other, your vast knowledge of sports I think it's going to take you, as well as potentially for John, into aspects of sports outside of the world of MMA. I mean, you've got the voice, you've got the looks, and you've got the knowledge. And I wish you all the best on that. And I think it's in your future. I really do.
It means a lot coming from you, and you've shared a lot personally, and we've been in private situations where you've been my biggest advocate. I felt as though you were my agent in certain spots, right? So you know how much love I have for you. And I appreciate you talking about TJ and I in the commentary because it is getting reps. This is a repetition here for me today. And ultimately for me, some of these other promotions, whether it be Dirty Boxing or PGF, we don't know what the future is, but my goal is to help these promotions potentially achieve their goals and what they're trying to do and maybe be a small part of that. So if I don't get better as a commentator or I don't bring enough to the table, it's certainly not going to help any of these promotions. And look, I've spent a lot of time being kind of a backup quarterback, watching John, but holding a clipboard and not getting opportunities. And a lot of the times when I used to watch him, it was never about me wanting to do this or getting opportunities, about me taking notes and ripping him a new one when he came off air with any constructive criticism I might have for him. But I was an actor growing up. Some of the performance stuff does come somewhat naturally, not saying I'm there yet. But the thing about John that a lot of people don't realize, John is a journalist through and through.
Yes, he is.
Fighting comes secondary, and the sports even comes secondary to that sort of writer and journalist that is inside of him. So I think that at the core of him and sort of at his foundation has been a big part of his success. And the preparation and the work. He's working all the time. He can't be in this seat talking to you boys because he's in another seat talking to someone else today. It's just crazy. And he would never turn down Buff, ever.
Oh, no, and I appreciate that about John. You know, when you talk about the variation of sports that you can commentate, listen, be open to everything. Like the world champion eater Joey Chestnut, right? he just beat his own popcorn eating record, okay? If you got called in to do something like that, I've been called in. I've done an eating contest in Vegas one time. Do it all. Do it all, as long as it doesn't interfere with something you have going.
Have you talked to your audience about the Nikki Glaser experience?
Yeah, we talked about it the week after.
Okay. Sorry, I know I'm a week late, but that was incredible. Just wanted to say that here. Whew.
Yeah, it was incredible, and it was all by chance, as I explained to you. You know, wind up sitting next to her on the plane, not recognizing her right away, but saying, you know, you look like Nikki Glaser, and she goes, well, I am, and that's where it all started.
But just look, yes, great opportunity for you, but the opportunity for her and for her to recognize that opportunity for her was just so cool. And so many of the comedians, as you know, are tapped into the UFC. You know personally, you're hugging them and shaking their hands there at a lot of these fights, so I loved it.
I've opened up for a number of comedians, you know, from Andrew Schultz, you know, Russell Peters, Tony Hinchcliffe. Have my own comedy show at the Laugh Factory, you know, with a variety. I just love stand-up comedy, which I've already talked about in the show. People, you know, consistently listen to us know that. I'm a huge stand-up comedy fan. I mean, it just goes hand in hand. And I was just watching last night. Whenever I go on like a TikTok or Instagram, watch the videos, you know, I look at TikTok and some of the videos are just ridiculous, but I'll like tune into, you know, old Rodney Dangerfield. Right, if you're familiar with him, and just laugh and laugh and laugh. I mean, I just get so much humor out of all of this stuff.
I love it.
It's incredible. You like popcorn? Do you hear what Joey Chestnut did?
Talk to me.
Let's see here. He's got 55 world eating records. This is a strange venture to be in. 16 Nathan hot dog records. He just beat his thing. He confirmed he did 32 servings of 24-ounce popcorn in 8 minutes, breaking his previous record of 28.5. 32 servings of 20. How long it takes me to just chew a handful of popcorn?
Well, I would choke.
I want to know what the drink is.
Yeah, I think that's part of it too.
You have to have the right drink to try to eat massive amounts of popcorn, and I'm kind of kicking around in my head what that would be for me. Because I mean, you're trying to down that much. You don't want to like drink something that's super filling. I don't think soda would be a good idea. That would kind of hurt with the
My guess is it's
carbonation.
water.
But water and popcorn is
Like,
disgusting.
well, it doesn't matter. Eating 32 servings is disgusting.
So are
it's just-
soggy hot dog buns in
That's
his
true.
wheelhouse event. But Buff, if you're asking me if I would call a popcorn eating contest, sure.
Yeah.
It sounds like more of an auctioneer type gig.
Yeah, it's a
right?
one-off.
You know.
Yeah.
But yeah. And what you announced the Preakness? How long ago was that? I'm sure you talked
the
about that.
Preakness
On this.
was 2 weekends ago.
Just unbelievable. Trying to follow.
This is
the
what's
career of
dangerous,
Bruce Buffer.
though. This is what's dangerous about Buffer. Buffer goes all in on everything that he does. He goes to the Preakness, Jason, and he comes home with a racehorse.
What do you mean? You bought
He
a horse
owns a racehorse.
that you didn't own prior to the Preakness?
No, I'll tell you how it happened. A good friend of mine named Matt owns a number of racehorses, and after he saw me do the Preakness, he called me up like literally, 2 days later, and he said, "I'm about to buy a horse, and I've always thought about this, but now I know I have to do it. After seeing you do the Preakness, I want to name the horse It's Time, right? So I want to make you part owner in the horse. The name is taken, but I'm going to try to free it up." He wound up freeing up the name, and he bought a young horse for like 6 figures, and it's named It's Time, and he's going to train it. And it's a long shot if the horse ever runs a big huge race. But I said, I'll only do this on one condition. I said, what's your safety record with your horses and training? Because I'm very much an animal lover, and a number of horses pass away each day on the track from training and racing, and that bothers me, quite honestly, in the sport of kings. I said, I just have to know if you have a 100% safety rating with your horses, and I'll go for it. And he does. And so now I'm proud part owner of a horse named It's Time, and if anything happens in the future, we'll see. I mean, listen, there's been a horse that has won the Kentucky Derby that cost like $10,000 and went on to win the Kentucky Derby. In the Kentucky Derby this year, every horse was a direct descendant of Secretariat, who was a long shot in itself.
Well, the horse ownership, I've heard, is just as much of a long shot as there can be, but the most fun, riveting thing you can do. And I tell you what, if you had come to my brother when that was presented and be like, "Hey, John, there's an opportunity to invest in this horse. It's time." You might have had to not say anything other than "It's time," and John would be ready to wire you a contribution. He can't get enough of horse racing talk and the opportunity to eventually own a horse. Maybe
Well,
one
it's
day.
funny you say that, strangely enough, because I will text you right now. I don't know if all the shares are taken, but Matt is selling shares in It's Time. 5%
There you
shares.
go. See? I'm telling you.
All right. I'll send that to you. I'll send it to you.
Do you know
got it.
the
No
origin
problem.
story?
There was a big thing at a horse. Sorry, go ahead.
Do you know the origin story of the word upset when an underdog wins, whether it be a game or a fight?
Talk to me.
Talk to me. Yeah. Lay it out.
So it's interesting. I believe that there was this horse named Man o' War that was like going to win the
Man o'
Triple
War,
Crown or something
right.
like that. And it was favored hugely to win. And it was beaten by a horse called Upset. And that's literally where the phraseology comes from when someone pulls the upset. Wow. The more you
Really?
know.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating. I thought it was going to be some old school thing, like all the action was always on the favorite and some, you know what I mean, that it actually had some real connotation. But no, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's either upset or it's underdog. It's one of those two. I can't remember right now. I'm trying to use AI to figure that out.
Oh,
But
it's got to be underdog. Underdog makes
I think
more
it is
sense.
underdog now that I think about it. But yeah, that's where the underdog sort of comes from.
Yeah, I like it. So
All right, I'm
Bruce,
shooting
do you
shooting
watch
this to you right
basketball?
now.
Do you watch basketball, Bruce?
Yeah.
Like, you watch the NBA playoffs?
Partial. The team I'm rooting for is Oklahoma this year, who
Got a
seems
great
very
chance to win
strong.
it. Best team in the NBA in the regular season. So good defensively. And SGA is Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, best player in the NBA for my money every day of the week. Doesn't chuck a bunch of threes like everybody else.
Right.
I just really hope the New York Knicks can be eliminated soon because for anyone that knows Boston fans, it's really kind of a nightmare watching the Knicks compete right now. Celtics were. So
Well, the
once
Knicks are down.
The Knicks
They're
are
down
down
3-1,
3-1, but
3-1,
until they've been eliminated, I'm not going to rest easy.
Well, tonight's game is at the Knicks, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so there's always the chance to take it on a home court. But, I mean, to come back from a 3-1 disadvantage is very rare.
It is.
Very rare. I think it's going to be Indiana and Oklahoma in the finals.
I'm just going to stay silent here because the Thunder eliminated my Timberwolves.
It's okay. Timberwolves will be back.
Not okay. Do you know how hard it is to be a Minnesota sports fan?
So, Bruce, yeah, I know it is. So, Bruce, are you aware of what John does for Zach and Lappy Zach and Lappy, UFC producers, do you know what John does for them every year for a gift? You aware of this bet,
No.
these betting ticket? So I'll bring this to your audience, right? So John's bosses at the UFC every year. He buys a bunch of future tickets for the NFL, the NHL, $100 wagers, baseball, who's going to win the World Series, the NBA championship, Stanley Cup, etc. So, and we put these tickets out on the table, and they each get to pull a few tickets. And every year we've had success to different rates. John will give me one of the tickets here or there, let me pick. So, but usually John and I together will come up with these sort of future long shots. So anyway, one of the long shots that they left on the table this year was a $100 ticket on the Indiana Pacers to win the Eastern Conference at 42-1. Buff.
Ooh.
So I'm sitting on a ticket right now on the Indiana Pacers 42-1 to win the Eastern, to win one of these next 3 games against the New York Knicks. So I'm not counting my chickens before they're hatching, you can be sure. But anyway, I wouldn't mind cashing that 42-1. And Zach and Lappy left that ticket on the table.
So on the table?
They left that ticket on the table, so they get to pick a bunch of these $100 tickets. I think they each pick 3 or 4 tickets. And then if they don't pick any, there may be 3 or 4 left for John and I, or for John. And I had suggested the Pacers at 42-1. So John, that was one of the tickets he purchased. Zach or Lappy could have grabbed it. This was in February or March, Buff, right?
I think you're locked to win $4,200. I don't normally say that easy, but I mean, come on, 3 games. Like, they're not going to take one more game.
Hey, one game at a time. I don't think they're going to win tonight, so we'll see what happens.
No, I don't think so either. I actually think the Knicks is a very good bet. The Knicks are underdogs tonight, aren't they?
No, minus 175. I think minus 4. TJ may be falling asleep here, but Buff and I love gambling, and we obviously can't bet on mixed martial arts, so we have to find it somewhere else.
I don't bet on it. You know why I get in that octagon is I want to be an equal opportunity announcer.
Yep.
I have made a couple parlays in my life just for shite and giggles, and I think I've made 3 and I've won 2.
There you go.
9-fight parlays. But I don't even think about them when I'm working. It's just something I just did and put it aside.
I hope you guys can hear me right now, but I want to interject.
I hear you.
Because I
It
want
wasn't
to give,
the NBA talk.
I mean, maybe a little bit of both, but I want to give John his flowers here, because while sports betting, I think, has been, always a thing for a lot of people, an interest of, John has done such a wonderful job at incorporating betting lines into the UFC discussion. And I mean, everybody is talking about lines now. And I think John was the first play-by-play commentator that I can really recall that would throw that out there when a fighter was making his walk. Finds himself as a plus 750 underdog tonight. And I feel like without that narrative for a lot of fans probably aren't as interested as they are, every Saturday night that the UFC runs. And I think it puts a lot of fights, especially these upset victories, into perspective for, casual mixed martial arts fans and, fans as a whole.
Yeah, well, for sure. By the way, the Knicks are minus 4.
Yeah.
Just so you know, right now.
But,
No, I'm with you, TJ. I agree with you.
And, it was taboo when John used to talk about it. Now it's everywhere on the screen. All broadcasters are encouraged to do it. But I do think, John and I have been betting on sports since we were 16 years old. As 30 years we've been betting on sports. It was a very natural thing to bring and give some context to it. And you can be sure DraftKings is helping pay some bills for the promotion these days. And, whoever's doing that when the new contract is up, if it's DraftKings, FanDuel, whatever it is, it's big, big money. And I do think the context is fascinating. Even if we look at this weekend's card, Ramiz Brahimaj, right? Bilal's trained with him, right? He was supposed to face Oban Elliott. He's a huge underdog. He's facing a new guy coming in, Billy Ray Goff, I think's his name, but he's coming in on short notice. And Ramiz is still like a 4-1 underdog or whatever it may be. So, it really is interesting and does contextualize some things. You get a guy like Bo Nickel, right, who's still a heavy favorite against Reiner de Ritter. A lot of people in the game love Reiner de Ritter. So I think it contextualizes this particular sport in a very unique way.
It does.
There's
when you just
lines tonight for the FPI. Like the fact that grappling has lines now. I mean, that is a clear indicator to me that the sport is actually breaking into the mainstream, because if people are betting on it and are talking about it, it raises all ships.
It's a clear indicator for any sport. It was a clear indicator when people started betting on the UFC, of which there's a huge amount on UFC. I'm
Let me
working with
just
some
say,
people, and
back in the
UFC
day,
has a
you
big
could make
effect on a
real
lot of
money.
things.
You could make real money betting on the UFC when people had no idea
Oh,
what
I
was
bet.
happening.
Oh,
Well, if you had an idea what was happening, you definitely could make some real money. That's for sure. No question. This Saturday is the event at the Apex. I will be announcing the Apex Fight Night this
nice.
weekend with Macy Barber and Aaron Blanchfield, which should be a pretty good, solid go for it all fight. Matus Gamrod and Ludovic Klein, Ramiz and Billy Ray Golf. The bout you were just talking about. Ketla Vieira, Mary Chasson, Bruno Lopez, Dustin Jacoby. It's a good, solid night. A good, solid night of fights.
Yeah.
I'm
Um,
curious, Jason. Do you remember your first bet and what it was on?
Back in the day, it was a lot of $10 baseball 3-team parlays, 10 to
won't bet
pay you
baseball.
46 or whatever it was back in the day. But I could bore your audience, but what we've always done is sort of hedge and bet against Boston teams so that we would either get paid or Boston teams would win. So very early on, we've been betting against. You can be sure I'm betting heavily on the Knicks, regardless of my Pacers ticket. Betting heavily on the Knicks in an effort to take them down. So a lot of our early action, TJ, was betting on New York teams and betting on teams facing Boston teams.
Have
Hey,
I ever told
Jason,
you, Jason, what
do you
my
collect
first
sports
bet
cards?
was? Uh-oh. The
Talk to
internet
me and then
kills
I'll
me.
get to Bruce.
Go ahead.
Sorry, real quick. My first ever
We heard
one
your
and
question.
only-
Go ahead. Go ahead.
One and only bet I ever did in MMA. I bet $20 on Kit Cope to beat Kenny Florian, because I was worried that Kenny couldn't strike with Kit Cope, and I was made a fool. So Kenny reminds me of this.
Yeah,
from
you
time to
definitely
time.
lost that bet.
Bruce, I used to fanatically collect sports cards, and I have a lot of sports cards from a long time ago. I really have collected sports magazines and newspapers, right? Like I have newspapers for when Boston sports teams won championships 25 years ago.
Right.
At some point, I need to really put it together, but I can't get enough of it. I mean, Bruce, we like ball sports, basketball, football, baseball. Like that's what we grew up on, hockey to some extent. So yeah, I was into all of that. Like my friends got us a skateboard for me and John when we were like 11 or 12. We're like, oh, I want a fucking skateboard. Like get me a basketball. But yeah, we were all into sports cards. And Bruce, I just found, I should show you, I'll text you the picture, my Bo Jackson on the front of my like Beckett Sports Football Card Monthly magazine. I mean, like, yes is the short answer.
Well, you mentioned you were a Fanatic, and Fanatics is the card to get these days with all the recently released UFC cards. I even have cards that are 1 of 5 or 1 of 20 that have sold on the internet for $1,500 plus, and just after being released. If mine are selling for that, you can imagine what others are selling for. It's crazy. I plan to hopefully announce the next year or something, a very venture I'm going to do. I would love to start, maybe I shouldn't talk about it before it happens, but I'm going to probably announce something very, very cool involving sports card sales in the next year.
Yeah,
I know I'm tickling. I know I'm tickling.
We got to talk offline. There's a lot
We'll
to
talk
talk about
offline.
there. A lot of
We'll
meat
talk
on the
offline.
bone.
Yeah,
Are you
there's
guys-
a lot. There's a lot of.
I hate this. I'm sorry. I feel like I'm interrupting every time, but
No,
I
it's
promise
okay.
when
Are
I
we
start
as
talking, no
blurry
one's
or
talking,
slow
I'm
as
talking.
you? No, we're not as blurry or slow as you. Proceed, Butch.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Are you
Yeah,
a
that's-
memorabilia guy, Jason? Do you ever collect like a game used thing or anything like that? Because I feel like when it comes to collectibles, that's where the market's going. The sports cards that tend to be very valuable. They're either, one of ones signed with a signature, or they have like a jersey, or, they're selling pieces of the octagon in some of these trading cards. Are you someone who likes to get some of that authentic stuff?
Yes and no, right? I got a Drake May, North Carolina signed helmet over my shoulder here that John got for me. Mercedes Lewis, who's a 20-year NFL veteran tight end, who's a big UFC fan, right? I'm trying to get my hands on one of his Jacksonville Jaguars jerseys because he goes to these events, maybe have him sign it. I told him to his face I was trying to get it, so I think he may make that happen. But yeah, I'm more for like the jersey exchanges, right? Getting one authentically, in a moment with a guy. But no, not huge on that. But, I make it in. I'm an old man, though. I'm 46 years old. I got a lot of moving parts.
For me, I have a lot of memorabilia from the past, all the different things I went to. I mean, one of the coolest pieces of memorabilia I have is a signed ticket from the flu game by Michael Jordan.
Wow.
I gifted that to my brother Brian, which he cherishes. A lot of stuff. It gets to the point where between storage and everything else, I just don't have room for anything more. I've cut myself off. I collect movie memorabilia, sports memorabilia, antique weapons and stuff like that. But I got to keep it all in storage. I mean, there's only so much stuff that you can put out.
Well, right. And what is it for, right? Like what I'd love to do with all my old Boston sports publications is maybe have someone like cut them up nicely and put them in a scrapbook so I can actually enjoy it myself. Because who's it really for?
Then they lose the value once you do that, but they have the value to you
Am I
personally.
trying to just go make, 10 to 50 grand off my memorabilia and continue with my life? Or is that something special to me, right? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Hey,
Hold on to
if you're chasing the commentary dream, Jason, you might need to sell some of that stuff to stay in business because, man, it's a tough world out there.
I'll show you one cool piece I have.
Uh-oh. Every time he does this, I feel like we need like the MTV Cribs.
Yeah.
Crew to come out of nowhere and just walk around Casa de Buffer. What do you got, Puff?
Tom Brady autograph.
Oh.
Can you read it?
Yeah, love you, my man.
Yeah, we can see it.
Yeah, I know you appreciate that because we all know what a great Tom Brady fan you are. He just opened 6 sports card shops across the country.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's very big into the sports cards. So, listen, hold on to it. You might say, God, who's going to buy this? But the stuff it's not just sports cards. The Pokemon, all those other things, which I'm not. That just doesn't do anything for me as valuable as they can be. But just stay away from NFTs. That's all I can tell you.
I have
Waste
so far.
of time. Knew it was a waste of time when it started. If I can't hold it in my hand, I'm not interested in owning it. Not at all.
Fair.
Jason, before we cut off here.
This coming from the guy that bought Bitcoin and then sold it when it dropped $20,000 immediately. You got to hold on to it a little bit, Puff.
I've got Bitcoin. I got a little bit more. I've held on to it. Huh?
Okay.
I
remember last time we talked about crypto.
I learned my lesson. I dropped it. I bought it. I dropped it, and it would be worth God knows how much now. I bought a nice little chunk a couple years ago. I've held on to it, and it's done quite well. And who knows where it's going to go, but I'm not even going to think about it. Just put it away. I don't think I'm going to buy any more, but, that's my little diversified.
That's what I was about to say. My boy Brucey is diversified, and look at him at 68. Look, 48. What, you think I'm blowing smoke? 53? Come on.
I'll take it. I'll take it. I still got my 6-pack, even though people saw a picture of me, and it still cracks me up that saying that I have ab implants. Oh my God! I'll give you $1 million to your 1,000 if you can prove I have ab implants.
I'm going to leave that where it is. Come on,
cracks me up.
You seen the guy work out? But you see, abs I hear are made in the kitchen, and that's where I fail.
I don't know. To me, it's called 75% how you eat and 25% how you train. But all the surfing I've done, all the work, it's all. I was always into staying in shape like that. And you maintain it, you maintain it.
Hey, round is a shape. I've said that my entire life. So.
And TJ, though, your head looks beautifully oval, whereas maybe a year ago it was more circular. Fair? Thinner face?
That's very fair. I'm down 75 pounds.
Unbelievable.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I didn't enjoy my hug as much last time we were together. You know what I mean?
Sorry, I'll put more effort into it.
It didn't give as much, right? You know what I mean? So you need to give a little more effort because there isn't that built-in effort. You feel me?
What do I do? Do I just hold the embrace longer? Is that what you want?
Yeah, because it was not usually you could just sort of be there and it was going to be anyway. We're taking off the rails, but TJ and I have worked together so much. And Bruce, what I'll say, you ask about the commentary stuff, like TJ has been the conduit more than my brother for me getting my feet in certain doors, and so
right.
Yeah, thank you, buddy.
Good. Hey, news just came over the wire. I love hearing you guys talk about each other. Sean O'Malley is completely off the weed and completely off Instagram, got off Snapchat, got off X, not thinking about that kind of stuff anymore. This is from Tim Welch.
Yeah.
And you know what? That just means he's really focused. So we're going to see what's going to happen with Tim O'Malley.
Good for Sean, because honestly,
Sean O'Malley, excuse me.
Like, I honestly feel as a 41-year-old man that I am an 80-year-old geriatric person at this point, because when I try to engage with social media more, this algorithm business, it is something that is always changing. You get consumed by it. Like, that's the part of the job that I really don't like, is trying to figure out how just to get, like, I have 13,000 followers on Twitter. When I post something, 100 people see it because I'm not, engaging enough, or I don't use the right hashtag. Like, getting off of social media when you're a high-level athlete, I think that can be the best thing for some of these guys.
Yeah, and we could talk about the weed thing. Welch said he thinks maybe he'll partake with him at certain points, and certainly getting off of marijuana during training, I think, can make a lot of sense. Sometimes, though, it was helpful with recovery. But the social media stuff, he said that Tim said that O'Malley felt just so much more relaxed and not anxious. He said they used to show up places, even to spar or train, and O'Malley's focus was like, oh, we got to create some content here. What could we create here? And I even talked to my brother yesterday, because we run into some of that, right, Bruce? I'm at these events, and I don't want to be a cameraman. Right, I say to John, what are we doing here? It becomes all about the content instead of living your life, right? I was at my daughter's 5th grade graduation today. I'm the only one not holding up my phone, right? I'm taking in the moment with my eyes. I had LASIK surgery about 8 years ago, right? Taking it with my eyes. Anyway, we left TJ, so it's not blurry anymore, but appreciate you boys having me on today, Bruce. We could talk for days, as you know.
Oh, no, believe me, I have a list of things here that I can talk to you about. I've got to go train. Speaking of training, I've got to go train for my 90-minute training session. I'm heading off to Fox Studios to do ADR on the Naked Gun movie that your brother and I were in. I'm sure he's being called into. For those that understand ADR, you go in and you redo some lines, which they match to the film. And I'm pretty excited about that funny piece of work coming out in August.
Yes.
That should be pretty incredible. And the new John Wick movie, Ballerina, I really want to see that. That looks awesome.
And since Buff said it, right, and TJ, I don't know if you're aware of this, but a lot of these young MMA fans are not aware of the Naked Gun series of movies, right? TJ, I assume you are.
Right.
Yeah, so my brother and Bizping and Buffer are in that movie. I think it's, I don't know, maybe coming out this summer. I think there's a premiere this summer, so it should be fun. There was an opportunity for John to do a stunt in the movie, and they were going to bring someone else in, and he was like, nah, dog, I got it. So
he did it.
He did it. So it should be fun to watch, Butch.
He did his stunt. I did my little stunt.
Yeah, that's right.
And we can't talk about it because we want to keep everybody surprised by the movie when it comes out.
Right.
But that was a lot of fun being, where were we? Atlanta, Georgia for a few days. And Big John McCarthy, the great referee.
There we go.
Yeah, was in the movie also. So boys went to camp for a few days in Atlanta. That was a lot of fun. Definitely.
And you came home with both ACLs, Buff?
Pardon me?
You came home with both ACLs?
I only have one ACL. I have no ACL.
Okay, all right. At least you didn't
I've
lose that
dedicated my ACLs to the UFC. Probably the only announcer that could say that. So, anyway,
That's
we told
not a
this
challenge. I know people try to keep up with you, Buff. Like, it's amazing to see what Bruce has done, Jason, in his evolution. He talks about our evolution because he's such a nice guy. But, like, if you look at some of the first UFCs, I mean, no offense, Buff, but you're like stiff as a board. You're just kind of there. Now you're moving all over the place. But we see the sort of imitators try to do what you're doing, and sometimes they take it too far. I recall a ring announcer, probably around 2010 or 11, who did an introduction of a main event and did the stop, drop, and roll like he was on fire. And I'm like,
I remember that too.
I blame you for it, Buff, because they're just trying to outdo you.
Hey, there was a time years ago I was thinking about doing a judo roll out of the blue corner, but I thought that'd be a little cheesy. So, not.
But you know what I've said to Buff often, and I have the privilege to get to know Buffer intimately, and it's times where I'm sitting at the apex, just a table, me and Buffer. But what I've noticed so much, and I think you noticed this too, Bruce, is that let's say there's 18,000 people in the arena. Every event, more and more are saying Buffer's lines with him to the point where it is like, what is it now? We have to like 17,000 people holding their phones and literally chanting it's time. And it's not as if they're just saying it's time, right? They're trying to say almost everything with you, and it is grown. That's grown exponentially in terms of it just, right? I'm watching an ad on TV for the pay-per-view coming up. They're advertising Bruce Buffer on my television, you know?
I'm appreciate, I'm honored and humbled by the whole thing. It's an amazing compliment to have that happen. What can I say? Thank you very much. But the show's not about me. The UFC is not about me. It's about Jason.
Real quick, you're a marketing genius, Bruce, but I think it's been an evolutionary process for you. Jason,
Sure.
when we started this podcast, instead of It's Time, Bruce wanted to call it the Buffer Zone.
That was the name of my website at the time.
I know,
TJ,
but come
am I
on,
getting
It's
the sense
Time
that you
Radio
don't
or
like that?
Buffer Zone, come on.
Not a bad name.
Not a bad name. I mean, I you know, I don't know what to tell you. Certainly I probably, if I'm voting, maybe I like It's Time, but the Buffer Zone, I mean, hey, I could argue from a marketing standpoint, get Buffer's name in the podcast, but you know, It's Time, you know, it's Buff.
It's time's the thing. We can have a segment on the show called the Buffer Zone, and all good. The Buffer Zone
Let
to
me
me
just
is.
tell you, maybe I don't like it because, you know, women in my early years, they always kept me in the buffer zone. I never got past that.
Well, the buffer zone is the point between two factions, right? That's a proven thing, the buffer zone. So
Trust me, I know. I was at
Be a
the
buffer.
end of the faction when I was trying to, you know, impress a lady.
Well, TJ, that's your evolutionary process, and hopefully that's improved too. So we'll just talk about it like that. Jason, a pleasure
Hey, I've been
having you on
married
the
for
show.
15 years this year. I'm doing all right.
Congratulations. It's amazing. It's quite an achievement. Quite an achievement.
You did my
Jason-
wedding too, Buff.
Yep. That's what I do. I specialize. We get 20, 30 requests or more a week. I'm doing videos and audios of weddings every week. I think I've done 9 weddings this week. People getting married like crazy. Yeah, no, it's one of my biggest, along with birth of babies and championship introductions. Weddings are huge. I don't do weddings on Cameo. I do everything else. Weddings, you got to write brucebuffer.com. But we get a lot of requests.
I bet.
So, and it's a pleasure, you know. It's really a part. It's a great honor to be part of somebody's special day. My partner Kristen and I've said this before. I mean, I get like little emotional reading some of the thank you notes. It's amazing.
Oh, I'm sure. Well,
Yeah.
had I known you back in 2011 the way I do now, it would have been Bruce Buffer officiating my wedding instead of John Anik. You can be sure.
I've done that too. That's all right. Anniversaries are coming up, and I do a lot of anniversaries. I just did one on Cameo this morning.
When we renew our vows, we'll get Bruce Buffer.
I did a 14-year anniversary on Cameo this morning, and they wanted me to call the groom a certain name. We talked about that earlier, and I said I'm not going to do that. But I still did it. So all good. All right, Jason. Pleasure having you on the show.
You
Give my
too.
best to John. I'll see him in Newark. I'll see you probably in Newark too, I assume. More than likely. Where
Missing
there's
that
John,
one,
there's Jason.
but back on the road show after that.
Okay, very cool. Very cool. Always a pleasure, Jason. My best to you and your family, my friend. Keep the hair growing. It's amazing.
You guys are the best.
I
Thank
got to
you.
get you a hair commercial. That's
Yeah.
what you should.
Hey, talk to Dana. See what happens.
Why? Dana and hair. Did the two go together? Okay.
Just Dana and anything. Everything he touches turns to gold, unless I'm mistaken. So if
It's amazing. Nope. The guy's got the Midas touch. No good. He's a maverick. He's got the Midas touch.
Yep.
No question. Guys,
Thank you, guys.
I got to go train. I got to get ready and go do my the rest of the stuff I got to do today and then head off to Vegas. TJ?
Check out the Fight Pass Invitational. It's probably available now for you on UFC Fight Pass. We got a really exciting main event as Fionn Davis runs it back with Adele Fornarino. The winner of that should largely be considered the best female grappler in the world. So tune into that on demand right now on Fight Pass.
Very cool. Jason, again, always a pleasure. Thank you for all your kind words. Sincerely appreciated. I'd like to have you on the show from time to time. I think we need to talk more sports. If you're open, I'm open. So
I'm down.
All good. All right. Sounds great. TJ, always a pleasure. I will see you next week on the show. Jason, I will see you when I see you around the MMA campus. And everybody, set your goals, write them down, be a role model to your sphere of influence, as we always say. And when you step on that yellow brick road to your future, just be and perform the best you can, whether you're champion number 1, number 10, or number 5. The bottom line is if you are your best, doing your best, then you're winning. And that's what it's all about in life. Winning, being your best. And please, I'll say it again, Be a role model to your sphere of influence. Treat people the way you want to be treated, with respect, and be kind in this world in which we live today. We need as much of that as possible. Big cheers and no fears, everybody. Jason, TJ, and Buffer are out.